Hey, how's life been treating you lately? Good, I hope. If you've been riding your dirt bike, it's been good, right? I've been good. Real good. Real good. I might not look good, but I feel good. Anyways, this video is designed to help you in rutted corners. Through my many years of teaching motocross schools, I've learned that rutted corners are the most difficult things for beginners to master. Sure, there are already some videos on this subject in your subscription, but this video is going to focus on one of the most critical techniques of these rutted corners, and that is controlling your speed. As you probably already know from my other videos, it's best to learn the techniques of motocross one technique at a time in a practice drill. The best way to learn how to stay in these rutted corners is on a circle, figure eight, or oval drill, with ruts, of course. This way, you are pretty much constantly cornering in a rut. Talk about repetition, right? Some of these techniques can even be practiced in a stationary position, but only a particular part of this subject can be practiced in a stationary position. The rest has to be practiced while moving. Remember, this video's techniques are controlling your speed through a rutted corner. This is done by controlling the front brake and throttle. You can begin practicing this in a stationary position. Get used to what it feels like to lightly use the front brake and or throttle. Okay, when you're heading down the straightaway and you're open on the throttle, as you shut off the throttle, your finger pops off, grabs the front brake. You're braking pretty hard usually at this point, front and rear brakes. But then after you get into the corner and you're trying to control the speed through the corner, the braking here with the front brake and throttle both is very light. So you may be on the throttle slightly to adjust your speed. The finger's there, but it's not using the front brake, of course. And then you need to slow down a little bit. You just shut the throttle and use the front brake a little bit as needed. Very seldom at this point would you have to brake hard with it. It's going to be very light braking or very light throttle to control that roll speed through the rut. So get used to what that feels like. You know, slightly using the front brake as you're off the throttle, of course, and then slightly using the throttle as you're not using the front brake, and kind of back and forth, being able to control that roll speed. When you begin practicing this on an action practice drill, section of the track, or the entire track, it will feel strange at first and be difficult to do. Your hand, wrist, and forearm will quickly get tired. It may even become pumped up. When this happens, take a break and keep coming back to it. Soon you will become more and more comfortable. Of course, there are many different types of rutted corners. There are different types of soils, from hard-packed to soft. Some ruts are curved on a consistent arc. Others become cupped out. Some have hard and soft sections where the curved arc changes. Don't practice on these tricky ones until you feel comfortable on the easier, smoother arced rutted corners. Why is controlling your speed through a rutted corner such a critical skill to develop? That's because you have to commit to a certain amount of lean into the corner and keep the front wheel down in the bottom of the rut. The amount of lean is difficult to quickly change, but your speed is not. For example, if you are leaning too far for the speed that you're going, the bike will want to fall to the inside of the corner. If you are not leaning over far enough for the speed that you're going, the bike will want to climb out of the rut. Worst yet, if the sidewall of the rut is too high, the front wheel won't be able to climb out of the rut. Instead of enjoying the ride, you'll receive a nice, refreshing face plant. Now do you understand why it's so important to control your speed coming into, going through, and exiting a rutted corner? Once the front wheel checks into the rut, the rear brake usually becomes obsolete. Controlling the front brake and throttle is usually the best method to stay in the rut. I say usually because in some situations it is better to use the front and rear brakes. This is when the corner can be entered with a lot of speed, and therefore you need to keep slowing down a lot, all the way up to the transition, like on these two downhill examples. So how does this work? When you use the front brake in a rutted corner, not only does it slow you down, it also makes the bike turn sharper. The other side of this coin is simple to understand. When you sense that you're leaning too far for the speed you're going, not going fast enough, the throttle will speed you up. Hence, front brake and throttle control equals speed and momentum control equals rutted corner control. So this is easy to understand. Even a person who only graduated the 2nd grade can understand this, right? Understanding it is one thing. Programming it into your sensory perception is a whole other story. In the beginning, you must keep your analytical mind 100% focused on controlling the front brake and throttle while practicing this simple, smooth art rutted corner through repetition. This is the most critical part because you have to keep your conscious mind focused on these techniques while doing them correctly. This is just the programming part. Remember to slow down enough to do the techniques correctly. Trying to go too fast will only keep you from doing the techniques correctly. Once you have done this frequently for long enough times, the new program will be installed. Once it's installed, it should run on autopilot. Should, but it usually doesn't without the conscious mind coming back in to check from time to time. Finally, the program will be installed permanently. After programming is complete, once you feel that you have mastered the front brake and throttle for rutted corners and all the other techniques for rutted corners from my other videos, the fun really begins. Now, all the rutted cornering techniques are running on autopilot. Honing and polishing these skills is way more fun than learning them. Now your conscious mind can relax because your subconscious mind is doing all the work. You are reinforcing the hardwiring, the groundwork that you have laid down. This is your visual perception, your perception of feeling the connection to the bike, your hearing perception, and your reaction timing. Once you have developed all the techniques of motocross, every time you ride, you are continuing to develop your intricate, sensitive feelings through your right wrist, hands, fingers, and feet. Your hands, fingers, and feet have become hardwired into the clutch, throttle, front and rear brakes, and the shifter. Pro racers make a rough motocross track, the bike, and themselves look like poetry in motion. Welcome to the realm of total flow concentration, riding in the zone. Okay, I may have gotten a little ahead of myself, but it's hard not to mention how rewarding motocross can be as you reach higher skill levels. Getting back to the subject at hand, controlling speed through rutted corners with the front brake and throttle. I want to show you how well these techniques work with some special helmet cam footage of myself getting warmed up and riding my rutted track. As I am approaching these ruts, I'm using both the front and rear brakes. Once the front wheel checks into the rut, I'm only using the front brake and throttle. Of course, I keep my finger on the front brake until I pull the trigger to exit the corner. In this footage, you can hear how much I'm adjusting the throttle, sometimes the clutch and throttle. Then you'll see some advanced riders. In some of these shots, you can see these riders using the front brake and throttle. In other shots, you will hear them adjusting the throttle, sometimes even the clutch and throttle together. This is especially true in corners that have soft, cupped-out parts. So don't be so poor that you can't pay attention. Pay attention to these techniques as you watch this footage. Hey, what's happening? Before I spend time on the track on that, I like to ride this on the track first. I find that it's a really good warm-up, not only for your physical warm-up, but also mentally for your balance. You can do a lot of things on the mountain bike, kind of like you do on the motocross bike as far as steering and balance and that kind of stuff. I spend a lot of time sitting in the office editing videos for my streaming subscribers, hours and hours. And at my age, I can't just come out, jump on the motorcycle and go out and hit some laps. I got to get things worked up a little bit, you know, get things warmed up. A little muddy down in here yet. Probably be avoiding this on my dirt bike today, or take that very inside. Might try that. And that's a lap. So don't be so poor that you can't pay attention. Pay attention to these techniques as you watch this footage. I hope this video encourages you to get out there and keep riding smart. There can be huge rewards in your future. Life behind bars, handlebars that is, and riding in the zone.